It is my privilege, I'm telling you, my privilege to recognize and to bring here Lisa Reitzel. She took office in January of 2013 after being in nursing for almost 20 years. She is Kate County's public administrator, taking care of our county's most vulnerable. She received her nursing degree from Southeast Missouri State University. She is currently the Missouri Association of Public Administrators treasurer, serving on the executive board and at-large director for Missouri Association of Counties. Lisa also serves on the Missouri Association of Counties Policing, Justice, Mental Health Steering Committee, helping deal with issues directly affecting our counties such as mental illness. She also serves on the NACo, National Association of Counties, Health Steering Committees, which deals with the same issues at a federal level and how they affect our state and counties. Lisa's greatest pride and joy is her husband of almost 31 years, Mark, and I've known Mark for a long time, and wonderful, and daughter Lydia, and proud grandmother of Payton, whom she adores. She also attends First Baptist Church in Delta, Missouri, where she is the co-music director and helps with the bus ministry with her husband, Mark. So it just warms my heart to welcome Lisa Reitzel tonight. Thank you very much for coming, Lisa. Okay. All right.
Oh, that's okay.
Yeah.
I will get to that. I know, that's okay. And Jan didn't tell me how long I had to speak.
We will close up about 6:50, so
Okay,
we
so-
can go as long as we can have questions.
Okay, because sometimes when I get to talking about my job, I get a little carried away, so I kind of lose track of time, so I'll keep my phone up here with me, but I don't go far without my phone anyway. So, first of all, again, I am Lisa Reitzel. I am your Girardeau County Public Administrator. I took office in 2013. For those of you who don't remember, that was quite a race in 2012. I had about 12 people, I think, that ran against me that year. It was quite a race. I always thought that I liked politics until I ran, and I thought, ooh, politics can get dirty. I don't really like that. So I know that I like my job and I like taking care of my individuals. And a lot of people truly do not understand what the public administrator does and what their job is and what their role is. For one thing, it is a 4-year term, my job is, so I will run again in 2024. But the public administrator can actually have 2 roles for an individual. They can be a guardian and a conservator for someone. And a guardian is actually taking on the role and the responsibility of taking care of helping make the medical decisions, also paying their bills for them, finding housing for them. And then the conservator is the role of taking on the financial aspect, paying their bills, taking care of their resources, estates, if they have a home, if I have to sell the home, things like that, doing investments for them. So it can be 2 roles. It can be a limited guardianship, or it can be a full guardianship. And when you think limited, well, what does that mean? Some people are able to retain their right to vote. Some people are able to retain their right to drive, where others, they are not. So it's actually specified when it's limited what my role is as far as my duties. So, like I said, it is a big responsibility. When you think, how can someone be appointed and how am I appointed? For one thing, I want to make sure it's something that everyone understands. I do not petition for individuals. I do not go out looking for someone who needs a guardian, conservator. I don't petition. My predecessor didn't do that, and I do not do that. Usually the way that I am appointed is usually the hospital will see that someone is in need, they're getting ready to be discharged from the hospital, and they see that this individual is just not capable of taking care of themselves. A lot of times an individual is hotlined through Health and Senior Services, and a lot of times it's a family situation where the family just cannot get along. There is a lot of hostility, there's a lot of anger issues, and they cannot get along. And so that's why the judge chooses a third neutral party, someone else to come in who doesn't really know anything about what's going on, to try to help diffuse the situation or just take care of mom, dad, or brother, sister, whoever the individual may be. Sometimes that's really difficult. I want to say that's probably the hardest thing about my job is the families. My individuals are probably the most rewarding part of my job. You know, being a nurse was so rewarding for almost 20 years, but I gotta say, within being the public administrator for a year, I said that's the most rewarding job I've ever had. And I really try not to get emotional. Chris Weiss is here, he's my attorney, and he does an awesome job, and he's seen me at probably my highs and lows, and he knows I can get pretty going 90 to nothing, but I'm like, you know, I try to be very strong all the time, but there's just times it's really hard, because for some of these individuals, they have no one but me. And I always knew that I was a very blessed person. But until I took this job, I really did not know what the word blessed was. Because as I said, some of these individuals have no one but me. So, you know, when you or I will take a Coca-Cola or a Little Debbie for granted, or a hamburger, these individuals think that's a real treat. So when they see Miss Lisa driving up, boy, Miss Lisa better have treats, because I've spoiled them rotten, let me tell you. I mean, they're just not used to things like that. I mean, I've never tried to live on $30 a month or $50 a month for my personal spending allowance, because the majority of the money that they receive, whether it's SSI or Social Security, goes to pay the room and board at the facilities where they reside at. If they live independently, which some of them do, we apply for food stamps for them. We make sure they have their Medicaid, their Medicare. We do all that for them. But it's still very tough. They're on a very limited budget, very limited funds. And so we take a lot of things for granted sometimes. So we try to help them out in every way possible. But like I said, it's hard not to get close to them when they sometimes have no one but me. And you really learn to appreciate the things in life. And it is a big role, because it's life or death decisions a lot of times. You know, I remember when I first ran for this position, and everybody was calling them a ward. You know, and I've had many different roles as being a nurse. When I worked in the nursing home, they were residents. When I worked at the ambulatory surgery center, they were patients. So then when I was running for the public administrator, everybody was calling them wards, okay? So that's another name. Well, I find it hard to call them now wards. I call them my people, because when you get to know their favorite colors and their favorite foods, they're my people. They're not wards. It's more of a personal thing. But I'll never forget the first time I was called up to St. Francis, and it was to make that life or death decision for someone. And I remember after I made the decision, after of course consulting with several doctors, I never do any of that on my own. I have several people I consult with. I just wept and wept, and I thought, you know, I'm sure those nurses at St. Francis thought, wow, we have a real wuss bag for the public administrator of Cape County. And I told my husband later, I said, I'm sure I made a really terrible impression, just bawling my eyes out, but you know, after a while I thought, I don't really care what they think of me, because the day that doesn't bother me, I don't need to be a registered nurse anymore, and I don't need to be Cape County Public Administrator anymore, because that was somebody's brother, or that was somebody's son, or that was somebody's husband. And the day that decision doesn't bother me, I don't want to do this anymore. I don't want to become hard and calloused. So, you know, I just let that stuff roll off my back anymore. So if you see me shed a tear once in a while, that's okay. I'm not going to worry about what you think about me, because I'm just doing my job. And I try to take care of my folks the way I would want to take care of one of my family members. And I wholeheartedly try to do that each and every day. And again, and you may say, how is it determined that they would get a guardian? Well, it's basically based on doctors' depositions. And a lot of times that is primarily focused on their decision to their ability to make a decision. Can they care for themselves as far as food, shelter, clothing, but their ability to make a decision and communicate that decision. And so therefore, there has to be, sufficient proof and evidence before they get a guardian and a conservator. And I mean, any of us would want that. So this decision is not taken lightly by the courts. Like I said, there are doctors' depositions that are there that is submitted as evidence in court by doctors to show why they need a guardian and a conservator. So, I mean, there's always that proof there. So it's something that's not taken lightly. And I have to say that, I've had some individuals that they have been restored. Guardianship should not be something that people look at as like a lifelong sentence. Now, there are some individuals that may never get to be restored. They may need to have a guardian and conservator for the rest of their life, to take care of their finances, to find housing for them, to pay their bills for them, to make their medical decisions for them. But some people, if you can help get them on the right track, because some individuals have dual diagnosis of substance abuse and mental illness. And sometimes if we can get them on the right path, get them the right help, they can be restored. And we have had success with that. I think we've had about 6 since I've been in office. And that is such a great day when you can go to court and help them, and that they are restored by their own guardian and back on track again. That's just wonderful. But it's something that takes a while too, because that does require letters from psychiatrists stating that they're stable and they're able to care for their own financial affairs, and that they feel they're able to handle their own medical decisions and all that on their own again. So it is something that takes a lot of work, and but it can be done. So that's something that we always try to give encouragement to our individuals. It's not something that's a lifelong sentence, or to their families. And a lot of individuals can't seem to understand why a family wouldn't want to do this. And several families have tried to do it, and some do, but it just becomes where they say, they burnt so many bridges. They get our personal family, my husband, my children, involved with financial problems, medical problems, alcohol, drugs, and we just cannot do it anymore. We'd rather, no offense for me to be the bad person, than them, because sometimes it takes some tough decisions of putting them in facilities sometimes that a mom or dad couldn't put their loved one in to get them the help they need. And so sometimes, you have to do that, but we do what we need to do because we're thinking more clearly, and we need to get them the help that they need, because sometimes with mental illness, that is part of the illness, is thinking that they don't need the medication, they don't need to go to the doctor, and they don't need the help. So that's when you have to step in and sometimes make those tough decisions that family members can't. So it's just a very long process sometimes, because I've had a lot of individuals who've been out on their own for a year or more and doing well, and then all of a sudden they have a setback and think they're fine and don't need the medication, and we have a relapse. So they can be doing well for quite some time and then have a setback. So it's just part of the mental illness cycle. So as far as training, a lot of people don't know what goes into being a guardian. When you take office, some people have backgrounds in health, like I'm a registered nurse, some people are attorneys, some people are social workers. But we do have a new public administrator training. We have MAPA mentoring. When new public administrators come in, they will be mentored by other public administrators who've been in office for years. We have continuing education, and then we have an annual conference that we go to for training. And then there is lunch and learns that we do. And we also have several workshops that we can attend. As Jan was reading in my bio, I had just went to the NACo conference, and there were so many workshops on mental illness. And it's just amazing to me how every state has problems and crisis right now with mental illness. I mean, it is just truly a crisis that's going on, and how we all have problems with it, but how each state deals with it differently, and each county even sometimes deals with it differently. So it's just so much of a learning process how they deal with it. But again, it's just an honor to be your public administrator and take care of our most vulnerable individuals. And I'll just take questions if anybody has anything.
Are there any questions in the bucket? Did anybody go on?
And I do want to say too,
You're right.
some people have said before about how many individuals do I have. I have about 155, 160, but each individual has so many specific needs that we do not have facilities here in Cape County to meet their needs. If you've ever looked around, we don't have any locked units in Cape County for young individuals. Our locked units are all for Alzheimer's and dementia patients. Like we have the Lutheran Home, we have Heartland Care and Rehab that have locked units, but they're for elderly people. So my individuals who are 30 years old who are trying to commit suicide or hurt someone else, I can't put them there with an 80-year-old grandmother. So I have people that are in Fulton, they're in Zenith, they're in Bellevue, they're in Farmington, they're in Fredericktown, they're in Perryville. So you have to find a facility to meet their needs. So that's why when you think the Cape County Public Administrator, we'd stay right here in Cape County. Well, we don't. I mean, I even have one in Kansas City because we do not have facilities to meet their needs. And you think Cape County, a first-class county, we should have a facility here to meet our individuals' needs, and we don't. I mean, that's a shame. If you think if you had a loved one that was mentally ill and young like that, the closest one I have is at the Estates of Perryville, if they will take them. But when they have severe behaviors, usually the closest one I have is Zenith, and that's about an hour and a half to 2 hours away. And so that's really sad when you think, you know, that's the closest facility that we have to meet their needs. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, first question. Cape County has 80,000 people. How many people do you serve? Lots of people have guardians who are in their families. Any idea how many total people have guardians in Cape County? So the first part of it is, how many people do you serve?
I serve about 160 because most of mine are both the guardian and the conservator, and they just changed the statutes where we can make those as making those 2 letters instead of 1, because really that's 2 jobs, a guardian and a conservator. But I have some where I'm just the conservator, so I have about 160. I have no idea in Cape County how many people have guardians. Sorry, I don't worry about that. I have to to worry with. Sorry, I don't know that.
Okay, next question. I would like, okay, let me try this one here real quick. Sorry. I had specific instructions on that one, so I didn't come across that until I opened it. You have such a great responsibility to help those people, and honesty and integrity should be the height of what is needed for any guardianship. Yet during the 2022 election, you were president of the Republican Women of Cape County. Your organization misled the public, and John Voss and Nathan Thomas's stance on pornographic material.
I don't think we're going to get into that. That has nothing to do with your job right now.
Okay. Okay.
It does have something to do with her too.
Okay, well, we can talk about that after. We're not gonna, go ahead.
Okay. Next one. I would like to go last if I could. I have only praises for Lisa. I work in long-term care, and she is wonderful. I have firsthand knowledge of her work, and I, along with long-term care, appreciate her. Charlene Boyce?
Charlene
Festy, okay, sorry.
I think she's great. She's impeccable.
That's all I have. Mike?
I have one that it would take me too long to write down. I don't know how to say it, but I'd like to ask.
Sure.
I'll hold the mic, because if I don't, I'll never get it back.
I was a guardian for a guy who I consider my friend. He started out with John Ferguson.
Yes, I know John
And,
well.
yeah, and John said, Mike, do not be both guardian and have him living with you. And I knew better, and that was pretty much a year from hell. And you probably know what I'm talking about as far as, and that's my question to you is, could you kind of just fill us in on some of the challenges you hit just in dealing with people personally and how they respond to you and how it is to, I know you've been the bad guy many times in people's lives, and how do you deal with that with people that are, often mentally ill?
Yes, for one thing, I try to always be available to my individuals. And I can tell you, a lot of public administrators are not. You can see I carry this phone with me all the time. It's by my bedside. And one thing I did when I took office, I changed it so that this phone, my office phone, when I leave, or the girls leave at 4:30, it rings over to this phone. Now, I didn't have to do that. It could have rang to my office phone, and when we get there in the morning, check the messages, and they could have just called me on my cell if it was an emergency. But I changed it so that anything that would go to that office phone would automatically ring over to this phone. Some people thought I was crazy to do something like that, because not only did some people have my cell phone for an emergency, that meant anybody that was calling my office was calling me. So I get calls at all times of the night. Miss Lisa, do you know how much money I have? Miss Lisa, can I have money for the movies? Miss Lisa, can I go to church on Sunday? Miss Lisa, can I go out in May? And it is March. I'm like, okay, but I want my individuals to have access to me. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Some public administrators, you can call them on Thursday from 8 to noon. I don't do that. And you're right, sometimes, they get mad at me because sometimes there's no money to give. Do you understand what I'm saying? They want money all the time, and I try to give as much as I possibly can because it is their money. But sometimes there's not, or sometimes you have to say no because we may have to save this back for something else that's coming up. You know what I mean? Sometimes it's like taking care of your children. You have to make decisions, wise decisions of their money. You're stewards of their money, how it should be spent, because they're not thinking of something that may happen ahead, and I have to think that way. And so, just like if they want to go somewhere that's maybe not a safe place for them to go with other individuals, and they can't think that through, or think that this could be a not safe environment for them, or there's not proper staffing, there's not a proper environment, I have to think of that, say, no, you can't go. If it's not going to be well attended with staff, or people that's going to watch over you, I don't let them go. So then, of course, like you said, you're the bad person. But more than anything, as you're saying, it's more or less the families that get mad at you. Yeah. Yet they're not the guardian or conservator, yet they were not appointed, but yet they're mad at you. And I didn't ask to be appointed. As I said, I don't petition. I don't do that. And just because they weren't appointed, it doesn't make them a bad person. I don't know if they take that personally. They're not a bad person either. We all know that they love their family. Nobody's disputing that. It just means there's some family problems there, and the judge sought it better for someone else to stand in and be the guardian conservator and to make these decisions. But lots of times I'm the one being attacked, and I didn't make the decision. And so that's the part that makes it really rough. And that's not fair either, because like I said, I don't petition, I don't go around doing that.
Well, Lisa, here's the important question for you. Everybody needs a place to go aside. Everybody needs a place to get away, and you do too. We all need that place where we get away from what we do. What's yours?
Well, I have a very supportive husband and daughter. They know my job, they know what I do, and they have always been so supportive. They know if I see a big sale. The other day, I just got to tell you, Buckeyes had sweats for $2.99. I bought every one on the rack. And my husband picked them all up. I'm constantly thinking of my people, no matter what I'm doing, whether it's some food that's on sale or clothing that's on sale. My family is so supportive. And so some days if I'm a little overwhelmed, they support me. And that means so much because, like I said, my family's so blessed. And we all know we're so blessed. So, therefore, I think that helps us all. if they know mom's doing a good thing, then they help me sometimes if I'm a little overwhelmed, because they know I'm doing a good thing. And when you're helping somebody else that's so in need, it makes everybody feel good. And as far as honest and integrity, ma'am, I try to be honest and have the best integrity every day. And if something at a meeting wasn't quite right, that certainly wasn't intentional, and I'm sorry if you thought that. Any other questions about my job?
It's so awkward. So I heard Lisa speak just a few weeks ago, actually, and you did an excellent job, and thank you for that. And she was talking about some of the monthly budget being slight, and also not available when people want or need things, or that Lisa just shows up with a surprise that is unexpected. And two of the women that attended actually went out and got some of the items that Lisa just keeps in a closet when before she goes to visit. And I thought that was very sweet and very generous, and I just wanted to give you that idea that if anyone would want to, pick up the small size Diet Cokes or whatever the favorite is, or Ding Dongs or Twinkies or whatever, and drop them off at Lisa's office, that she very often pays for that out of her own pocket.
It was very nice. Actually, it was Martha Hamilton, I believe, and Marty Mitchell that did that, and just bought some sodas and cupcakes and body loofahs and body wash. And because, like I said, they give that stuff to them in the nursing home. They do. I mean, Charlene can say that. They do. They give them toothpaste and body wash. But sometimes it's not the good stuff. As I say, it's not the good stuff. And sometimes you'd like to be spoiled or pampered a little bit too. So we took them some good stuff that day. And they was very, very thankful for all that. It's nice to be pampered and doted on a little bit. And so they really appreciate that. But like I said, it's never a dull day at the Cape County Public Administrator's Office. That's one thing I do love about it too, because when I was doing nursing, it's like, okay, we kind of had the same doctors working, kind of the same surgeries, and it's like, I think I can do this day in, day out, say the same instructions. I was pre-op and post-op, and with this, when you're taking care of 160 some people, I'm telling you, it's something different every day. I would think, okay, it won't be, but it is. I mean, when you think that many people, that many different personalities, that many different families, it's new every day. But it's so rewarding, and I'm so thankful for my job. But it's a big responsibility. I'll never deny that. Like I said, trying to make sure everybody has Medicaid, Medicare, food stamps, and making sure that, we're making sure they get their procedures done and checking on them in the hospitals. And then just like tomorrow, I have a funeral. So it's not going to be a good day tomorrow, but that's part of it. And I was supposed to do the polar bear plunge. I guess that was last week, because that's a big deal to me, guys, because that's Special Olympics, and that's something that a lot of my individuals participate in. So I'm a big avid person of the polar bear plunge. But I had somebody that day that was being buried, and I said I follow them from the day I get them till the day they're leaving, and I missed the polar bear plunge that day to follow him out. So it's a very rewarding job, and I'm blessed to have it. So, does anybody else have any other questions?
I got one real quick.
Yes.
What kind of budget do you have to work with from the county?
What kind of what?
Budget.
Budget. I don't actually have my numbers on me. I know somebody had asked that about a budget before, I brought it up in one of your meetings. I could get you a copy of my budget. I don't think my budget's very big, if you want to know, because basically it's for my staff, the payment of my staff. I have 2 staff members that are full-time. The county does provide me a vehicle because I travel so much. And then basically for our office supplies and any kind of traveling that I do for like the conferences and stuff that I go to. But basically that's about it. But I could get you guys a copy of my budget anytime.
I'm sure the budget is on. I got the microphone, Bruce. And I'm not even touching it. The budget's probably on the website, capecounty.us, I don't know.
It might be. I know it was just approved.
But my question was, you said you have a client over in Kansas City, so do you have to make trips over there?
Actually, what we've been doing with that, because they had COVID, so and everything, and how that comes and goes, so we do Zoom a lot. So that's how we see him.
Telemed.
Yeah, but we, now Fulton, I go and see him quite a bit in Jefferson City. So if I have like a meeting with that Missouri Association of Counties, so I'm double doing that. If we have a meeting, I go see him. Like I went to Jefferson City last week, I went to Fulton and saw him, so that works out perfectly.
And it is true, we have a few nurses in here, I don't know if they're here tonight, but it is hard when you have someone's life right there and you have to kind of put a lot of your own thoughts to the side and what their desires are, what their will is, those kind of things to make those on-spot decisions. And I mean, so anyway, accolades to you.
Yeah. It's not easy. It's not easy. Yes, sir.
Do you utilize the Amen Center any?
You know, I have tried to utilize the Amen Center before, but the part that I ran into a problem with the Amen Center is that my individual was truly homeless and had no funds at all. And I even offered to pay them myself to come and get them, and they wouldn't do that. And of course, they had to do a background check. Then they had to make them come back to Jackson or Cape County and then go back again. I'm like, you're not understanding what I'm saying. They're truly homeless and have no resources. But they wanted them to go down there and interview them. Then they wanted them to come back to Jackson for their interview that they had to do, I guess, the background check. So it was like 2 or 3 trips. I'm like, you're not understanding. They don't have any resources at all. I was willing to pay them to come and get them one time, but they still want them to go back 2 or 3 times, and they wouldn't take my money.
Well, you run off, into that with the government all the time anyway. They don't have any responsibility to care about what they put people through either. And I think the Amen Center has been burnt quite a few times, and they were kind of forced in it because they used to just about do anything for the people. And but so the other question was, like, out of all these homeless people and things that you see that you deal with and everything, how many of them are willing to work through the system, and how many of them are I'm going to say leeches? It doesn't mean they're just there to
Milk the system.
milk the system, or the drugs and things. How much of that do you see? How does that weigh out?
Well, one problem that I do have, and Chris knows I talk to him a lot about it, is that my individuals who sometimes have a drug problem, that creates a real problem because you cannot make someone go into a drug rehab center. People think, oh, let's get the public administrator. The public administrator should be your last resort, period. Okay, that's what everybody wants to run and get the public administrator involved. No, I should be your last resort, okay? I cannot make someone go into a drug rehabilitation center. I cannot get a court order and make them go to a drug rehab center either, because you know what? You can maybe get one, but the thing of it is your drug rehabilitation centers will not keep them. They will not make them stay. I don't care if you have a court order or not. They will not make them stay against their will, period. So if you take someone over to the Gibson Recovery Center, if you take someone to the Farmington Rehabilitation Center there, and they want to walk away, they let them walk away, period. They have to want to do it. So that's where we come into some real problems, because we have individuals who are, say, schizophrenic, and then they have a substance abuse disorder too. If you try to put someone like that in a boarding home, they're going to run away. So then we have a real problem here with they need to be in a locked, secure unit. Well, to be in your locked, secure units, you have to have your level 2. Jan, you know what I'm talking about, level 2. Well, a lot of times they can care for themselves. It used to be years ago when I started that all you had to do was be an elopement risk, a runaway, that you could get a level 2 on them. Anymore, that's changed. That now it's the level of care. Can they bathe themselves? Can they feed themselves? Can they dress themselves? Well, a lot of them can. So then we can't get the level of care really that they need to be in a locked, secure unit, or they'll run away. And then we have a problem of caring for these individuals because they don't want the help. They want to use the drugs. And I cannot make them go to drug rehab. That's what I'm saying. So a lot of times I'm almost in the court, what am I going to be able to do any different than what the mother or father could do? I can't make them go to drug rehab either. So sometimes it's a really tough situation to be in. Very tough.
Oh, you get to hold it.
Yeah, well, I just hold it up for that.
She has a connection there.
You know, when I was in Citizens Academy, we had the opportunity to meet a lot of the public officials, and you were obviously part of that when we went to the courthouse. Met the judge and the county assessor and collector and all of that. And your passion and your compassion really shine through, Lisa. And I want you to know how much I appreciate having you as a public administrator. We are blessed to have you. And I hope everyone recognizes that your heart really comes through, and I want to thank you for what you do.
I agree.
Does anyone else have any other questions?
How many do you have that are incarcerated?
Oh, gosh.
Two.
Two?
I didn't know you would see people.
Yeah. I go like when they go for their court dates. I have. Yeah.
Well, golly. It's only 6:09. What are we gonna do?
Anybody else have any other questions?
Jumping jack.
Jumping jacks. Any other questions?
Willie, someone asked you to respond to this. You said when you go to a national conference, it's every county. I think there's 3,700 counties in the country. Every county, not just every state, but virtually every county has more mental health problems than they've ever had. Can you speak to that? What do you see? What's the deal?
Well, I think a lot of it, like we're talking about, is the co-occurring disorders with the drug. People are not wanting to be compliant with medication, so then they're trying to treat themselves, and that's when we're having the co-occurring disorders. And one thing we talked about when we went to NACo, we got to actually meet with Senator Hawley and then his staff, and Senator Schmidt and his staff too, about one problem that we were all facing was the inmate exclusion, that how they're wanting, to stop the Medicaid. When our people that are in jail, they lose their Medicaid and they're not getting their medications. Well, I have a gentleman, it's just a problem with DMH altogether, but how they sat in jail for almost a year, before he got his evaluation done to decide whether he was fit to proceed. He wasn't getting all the medications that he truly needed, because they just can't give you all those in the jail. He wasn't being seen by the psychiatrist. So that's really a problem here, because, if you're not getting the psychotropic medications that you need, that are prescribed, you're not being seen by the psychiatrist that you need, you're not getting the treatment that you need, and you've been sitting here for over a year to get your evaluation by DMH, well, that can just cause more problems. I mean, how many times can I tell you that this poor gentleman was banging his head against the jail cell, then being taken to the hospital? Then that is costly to our county by having our sheriff's department have to take him over, transfer him to the hospital. I mean, that's costly if we would just keep the Medicaid going to make sure he gets the medications that he needs to alleviate these behaviors and help with that. Do you see how this is just costly coming down to your counties if they would just keep this going? I mean, he went to the hospital several times, and it was well over a year. And then we had to get another evaluation that he was able to pay for on his own because we didn't agree with the DMH evaluation. So now he's still sitting in the jail, though, waiting for placement, because they told us the other day when we had a region training, there were 225 people waiting for bed placement at Nixon Center, the waiting list. That's ridiculous.
You, Mark Welker, and Ruth Ann Dickerson were all asked the same question right here. And all of you took less than 5 seconds to say the same thing: drugs.
It's a real problem. And then with, the amendment of the cocaine, legalizing that, that's just, the weed, marijuana, that's just become another problem too, because we even had issues where we're worried about some of the workers with our individuals. I mean, it's just a terrible thing. I mean, so now your hands are just kind of tied. So, it's just a really bad situation right now.
But what did Adams tell us? What did our founders tell us? What did they say about our country, about our form of government?
You gotta have a moral
Gotta have our government is
yeah, made for world religious. Did you have a question?
So, Ms. Dickerson, when she was in here, captain or whatever, she said that they'd come to an agreement with the community counseling, and they'd also come to agreement with some other medical group there, and that had helped more than anything as far as dealing with the prisoners. Are you familiar with that?
They do have some, I think,
They just started this year.
yes, that are over there that kind of, I don't know if they're counselors or what they are, that see some of the prisoners over there. Because I sometimes get a call and say, hey, Lisa, we've got somebody over here that doesn't need to be in jail. And they can somehow, it depends on what the charges are, I think that they can have those dropped. Because I've actually taken some of those gentlemen and become their guardian. So, yeah, I mean, and that's true if they're mentally ill and their their charges aren't significant, then we can usually take care of that and they're put under guardianship. Because I've taken some of those
That's the way to
gentlemen.
get the medicine too that they were needing.
Yeah.
They were needing too, she said.
Yeah.
Well, she said that's helped more than anything.
Yeah, I think some of those have CIT training and stuff, so that's really good when they know how to work with the mentally ill. So that helps out a lot. But yeah, we've actually taken some of those people that were in the county jail and got them the guardian conservatorship. And actually one of those has been restored now. So that's really good. It's just the key is that they stay compliant on their meds and compliant in going to the doctor. That's the key to it all right there, is compliant.
So what would be the one practical thing that you could point to and say, you know, if we could do this, this would help, you know, this would change things for you, for our county, for this system or whatever. What's the one thing, or two or three, but
Well, for one thing, I think we need to make sure we have services for individuals. Sometimes I don't think we have the services that they always need, and finding placement for them. Just like the other day, there was a certificate of need hearing that was held up at Jefferson City, and I'm not sure why this did not go through, for a residential care facility in New Madrid County. And I could utilize that. Just as I said, I have individuals in Zenith, Perryville, Fredericktown, and they denied it. I have no idea why. And I mean, the public administrator from New Madrid County, she doesn't have one residential care facility in her county. Now, they've never had to have a certificate of need before for that, so I'm not sure why it was denied. And I mean, I called all three of my state representatives, Mr. Morris, Voss, and Barry Hovis, all three of them, which Mr. Morris is mine, but I called all three of them to talk to them and say, look, I would be able to utilize this too, even though it's not my county, because we have to place them where we can get their needs met. And we just don't have a lot of RCFs here in Cape County. I mean, I'm utilizing them in Bollinger County and every place else. We could use that. It was denied. I don't know why. I don't understand this. I don't understand this at all. No, I was not told why. Oh, well, I've kind of heard some, because some people think it's competition for other facilities, and it's like, it's not. An RCF is not a competition for a skilled nursing facility. It's not the same thing. And that's very frustrating. We're supposed to be worried about people's needs.
Yes.
Do you ever overlap with hospice care?
Yes,
You do?
yes, oh yes.
So it's not either or, it's,
No, I do hospice care, yes.
Okay.
Yes. Have you worked with hospice before?
well, not too long ago, my mother,
Oh,
but I was
yes.
just wondering.
Yeah,
Now
I mean-
Scott County.
Yes, I love hospice. I have several hospice companies I had to go with. I really love Crown Hospice, though. They're great. They are
Oh.
great.
Now, Lisa, come on now.
Yes.
I told y'all now. I'm just kidding.
All my hospice companies, though, have been great with my folks. They really have. They really have.
Thank you.
So, but, yes, I'm a firm believer in hospice. Yes, ma'am.
I have several people that would like to donate, so you don't have to spend so much of your own money, because I know personally that you do. Can you accept donations and funds if somebody would like to donate to you?
Well, with my attorney here, usually we just take items, and that way I don't like to keep up with money of other people's things, like to be responsible for that. I just take care of my ward's money.
Take it?
Yeah, like when Martha and Marty, they just brought like little Debbie cakes and sodas to my office, and then I took them out to the facilities when I went visiting. So I don't know if anybody knows where my office is at, and you can ask Jan. Anytime you have a question or you want to come by my office, you certainly can. It's 120 East Washington. I'm the little house on the corner with black shutters across from the Presbyterian Church. So it's great. I love all the elected officials I work with. but I really don't like being in any of the county drama. So it's just me and my 2 deputies there, and we're doing our work, and that's what I like. So anytime you want to come to my office, you certainly can. I have cards here. Anybody who wants them, you can call my office anytime. You can come into my office anytime and talk with me. Yes, ma'am.
What are some of the items that you could use the most?
They really enjoyed the body wash she got and the toothpaste, stuff like that. They really liked that kind of stuff. But they love the soda too, Shell. I mean, they love soda. Because, well, the vending machines are really expensive at the homes. They're very expensive. So one facility, I just took a bunch of the canned sodas they donated, and they just all sat around, we visited, and they drink soda. So, I mean, they love it. Does anybody else have a question?
Alrighty. Well, we want to thank Lisa for everything that she does.